You're listening to the Sasha Davis Podcast, a show about overcoming fear and manifesting your dream life. Each week, we'll dive deep into real stories and tangible advice about spirituality, law of attraction, mindset, and money so that you can be your happiest, healthiest, and most abundant self. You ready? Here we go. All right, guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited for this next conversation. I have Marissa Rehder here with me, and we have been we've been talking for a few years now, if I think about it, which is just like crazy how time is just flying by. But I'm really excited for this because she is going to kind of walk us through what this last, I don't know, a few years has been like for her. Some of the major shifts she's had in her life, how she helps people make these shifts in their own life. We're going to talk about self-care, the most common things that she sees that come up for women on why they're not taking care of themselves, and then really action steps for you guys to take on how to create that time and space so that you can start feeling better, right? Because when you have more time, more energy, you feel good and the people around you feel good. And it's like the gift that keeps on giving, you know? So Marissa, I know I did a little bit of an introduction, but can you kind of tell us like who you are, what you do, and then we can dive into like where this journey started for you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited. I am a former teacher, people pleaser, and all of those other things that come along with working in an area that is service-based. I came from a place with no boundaries and very little time for myself. And so I made it my mission to start living a life that was kind of on my own terms, that I could be proud of, that allowed me to reach the heights that I initially saw myself reaching as, you know, that high schooler and college kid. You have these dreams and these visions of and expectations of what life will be like. And then when it doesn't happen, you get a little lost and you kind of lose yourself in there. And so that has led me to becoming a life coach that helps other women really solidify what their best life looks like, who they really want to be, how they want to feel at the end of each day, and just pursuing and not being afraid to chase their dreams.
Yeah, I one of my biggest pet peeves that I hear people still say, and I don't think they do it intentionally, right? I think they do it out of like the kindness of their hearts, but at a very young age, we start asking our kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your life going to look like? And then it's almost like we try to follow this path of what our parents want for us or what we think society wants from us, and then we get to a crossroads where we're not happy and things did not work out the way that we thought they were going to. And then you're almost like, for me, I felt very criticized and ashamed of wanting to change career paths because it's like, oh, you're supposed to pick one thing and be that for the rest of your life. And when you start to be unhappy about it, people are like, what's wrong with you? You have this and you have that and you have that. You should be happy. And so what did that look like for you? Because I know, I mean, just from, creeping on you and whatnot, it looked like you were kind of like an all-star student and sports player. I think I saw one photo of you like with a basketball, like just killing it. So I'm curious what that looks like for you.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Yes, I grew up with a basketball in hand. Which was funny because first off, my dad played sports. Usually you think of like good athletes, they were raised by good athletes.
Yeah.
Like it's like your way of life. Mm-hmm. And my dad never shared his sports experience with me. It turned out he was quite the athlete himself, but I didn't know it until I was an adult, which is funny to me that he would keep that a secret. But I found very early on that I was good at sports. I was good at athletics. I was just naturally able to pick them up very quickly. And then when I found basketball, it was kind of the love of my life and everything centered around it. I had to get good grades and I had to be accomplished because I wanted to go to college and play sports and I wanted a scholarship and I wanted all these things. And I really did want those things. But when I got there, something had changed, and it wasn't sports. It wasn't the coaches. It wasn't the team. I mean, yeah, those things all changed, but it was me. I was no longer that competitive. I'm competitive, but not in that way. I don't know. Something had changed. And I tried to force myself into that box of still being a college athlete for so long. And it just didn't work out. And so that was the very first thing that I quit. And I felt like a failure. And that really kind of stuck with me the next few years of my life. Like, gosh, I couldn't even hack it as a college volleyball or college basketball player, and it turned out that I was people pleasing and I signed on to do both. And they were like, oh, people play two sports in college all the time. Well, they play like volleyball and softball not seasons that overlap by 3 weeks,
Yeah.
And so it turned out
right
that
into the other.
Yeah, exactly. I just kind of set myself up for failure because that turns out that's kind of my personality is like, if I'm afraid of, failing, I will just self-sabotage to the point where it doesn't matter. Yep. I can say I failed and it was my fault because I took on too much or I did too much. And so I got kind of lost after that, went through a failed marriage throughout college. I was just trying to do all the things that I thought society wanted me to do or that other people wanted me to do. My parents didn't necessarily like my ex-husband, but I was afraid of disappointing them and not actually going through with the marriage. So I did. And then I still, in the end, had to break it to them that I was getting divorced. Like it was a whole mess.
Yeah. How was that? And, share only as much as you're comfortable with, but what was that like the day that you kind of decided, like, what am I doing with my life? Like, none of this is for me. This is for everybody else. Like, what was the process? What was going through your mind? Because there's a lot of times we get to a point where enough is enough, but we go through a lot of stuff to get to that point. So walk me through what that looked like for you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it first started off with, I was in a long-term relationship in college that was not my ex-husband. He was a fantastic person. Everybody loved him. And I really liked him, but he wasn't the right guy for me. And I had self-worth issues based on not succeeding at sports like I thought I was going to. Other things that happened in my personal life that put me in compromising situations that took away my self-worth and things like that. And so it all kind of led up to that like culminating experience for me where I ended up being told by someone that if I ended this relationship with my long-term boyfriend and didn't accept his proposal, that I would probably marry the next guy that I met because that's usually how it happens. And so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, gosh, if I break this guy's heart, I am going to have to marry the next guy that I date because it'll prove that it was worth it, that it was worth ending that long-term relationship with him. And so that's what I did. I dated and married the next guy that I had met. And all through our relationship, there were red flags and I ignored them. My parents' marriage wasn't always super happy. They're still married to this day, but I just assumed like that's how marriage was, that you didn't like the person when you married them and you worked on it together your whole marriage until you did. I don't know. My parents love each other, but that was the perception that I had for some reason. And I don't know where that idea came from. So my thought was, well, I don't really like everything about him right now. So eventually that'll change, right?
It almost sounds like an arranged marriage, except for you picked like the person who did not match your personality.
Yes.
Because that's like what arranged marriages are. Like parents like pick the person, but usually they pick the person that fits their daughter's personality. So you were just like picked him because he was next, you know?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly how it felt. And then throughout our marriage, I mean, it was short. We were only married less than a year, probably 11 months, when, of course, society says when you've been married about a year, that's when you start talking about and thinking about having kids.
Oh, goodness. You're like, cut ties now.
Yes. I thought to myself one day, I was like, holy cow, if I had kids that were like my husband, I would be mortified, straight up mortified to raise children like him. And we all know how children turn out. They turn out how their parents were, unless they make the active decision to be different. And that just wasn't something that I was willing to fight, having to like take away that piece of their life and remolding it through them. Like, if that makes any sense, I didn't want to have to fight his personality so that my children wouldn't end up with it. And I was like, what the hell? Why am I married to this person? If I don't want children like him, why would I even consider having children with him? And if I wouldn't consider having children with him, why am I married to him? And so we separated. We actually were in the middle of building a house. We ended up selling it. We never closed on it, which was like heartbreaking to me. Once again, it was another failure because those were all the things on the boxes I was supposed to be checking as a young, newly married couple. And I wasn't going to accomplish that. So cross that off. And I started therapy. I knew that I had to make a run at it. I couldn't call it quits. It wasn't like me to just quit on things. So I went through 9 months of therapy, and I went a couple times with my ex-husband, and it was very evident to the therapist that he was not going to be truthful, that he was not going to be productive there. So I started seeing her on my own. And after 9 months, I was finally ready to make that decision for myself, that it was time to draw up the papers and end it within the first 2 years of our marriage.
I'm glad that you had that awakening. I feel like you've had it, hindsight 2020, right? Always. But right. At least you did it sooner than later, and I want to say props to you for even like going to therapy or seeking help, because I know that there's a huge stigma around that. And I actually do want to ask you about that. Like, what was it like going through therapy, and what do you say to folks who maybe have a stigma, or, you see a lot of stuff out there of mental health, like people are like, take care of yourself physically. But if you have like a shitty day, you're like, all of a sudden, the whole world is against you and nobody understands. And they say like, tough it up. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Rub some dirt on it.
Yup.
For me, I had no idea where to start looking for a therapist. I didn't know what I was looking for. I didn't know. It was a very stressful situation. I was literally Googling it at work, which was probably frowned upon, but I was to that point where I was just like, no, I have to do something. Yeah. I didn't have anybody to ask. No one I knew had ever been through therapy, let alone, contemplating divorce within the first year of their marriage. And so I found a website that had all of the local therapists on it. Started reading their bios and looking at their focuses, and just really trying to find one that I felt would be a good fit for me. And the funny thing is that I totally judged a book by her cover, and they had their pictures with their descriptions. Mm-hmm. And that was honestly what it came down to. Like, when I looked at her, she just looked like someone that was going to be able to help me.
Yep.
And it turned out she really was. And I know that therapy gets a bad rap because a lot of times it's just not a good fit for you. And so if you go 1 or 2 times and it's not a good fit, do not be afraid to walk away and try someone else. Don't discount it. It's just like any other job. You go out to eat, and just because you had a bad waitress doesn't mean that you're going to stop going out to eat. Yep. So
It's almost like a job interview, right? You have to find the person for the match, or the match for the person. And I went through the same thing. And I've had, God, when I was younger, different story, but I had a lot of anger issues, which I'm sure listeners, they probably know about. But I went through lots of therapists because I felt like nobody was truly listening. And so sometimes you just have to find that person that really helps build that know, like, and trust. And so you can have, 10 different life coaches or 10 different therapists or 10 different doctors who all essentially teach the same thing, but they will relay it to you differently based on their personal experience and what resonates with you. And so this is where it's not like a one size fits all, and you very much have to find that person that works for you. So I love that you're touching base on that, because I do find that a lot of folks will say, throw their hands up and just call it quits if they don't find the perfect therapist or coach or doctor or whatever in the first go around.
Yes, exactly. And it turned out a lot of times the way I look at having a therapist is they listen to you, they take it all in, and it's not like a diagnosis, but they are very much trying to figure out why you do the things you do. What in your past has led you to this point right here in front of them? And their job is to help you heal all of that. That's why you go to a therapist, is they're going to help you heal what you aren't able to come to terms with on your own. And it turned out what was causing me to be in all of these crazy situations was my self-worth and my innate desire to people please. And so when she started making comments like, you do realize that you get to choose exactly what your marriage looks like, right? You get to choose exactly who your significant other is. And if it doesn't feel right, it's okay to not continue it. And so eventually that's what we worked through. And I continued to go to her for a year after my marriage ended. But we really worked on self-worth issues. And so she had me create this list, and I think I probably shared this story with you before, but I created this list of what I wanted my marriage to look like and then what I wanted my husband to look like per an assignment from my therapist. And she was like, I want you to get as detailed as possible. Like, how tall is he? What color is his hair? How does he treat your children? Like all of these things. Mm-hmm. And so I made this list, and it was in the back of this little tiny journal that I had. I hid it in the back because heaven forbid anybody ever find this list. And so when I was going through this, I met a guy that was going through something very, very similar. And we just started off as friends. His family was very non-confrontational. Nobody had ever been divorced. He found himself in a very similar situation. He was asking me, like, how did you know when it was time? And, all these things. And finally, after everything was said and done, we were like, maybe we should go on a date. Maybe that would be a good thing to do. And I got out my list. And I said, this is what I'm looking for in a spouse. If you're not it, that's okay. We can continue to be really great friends, and I have no problem with that, but there's no point in wasting each other's time. And he was like, okay, I'm down for this. Let's give it a try. So I read him all the things, and he checked every single box on that list. I literally manifested my dream husband. Height, eye color, personality, sense of humor, types of favorite movies, sports loving, like all of it.
Yep.
It was insane.
I love this. Insane. No, this is incredible. And I think you're just living proof that, like, when you can get really clear on what it is that you want and like have those solid boundaries, that if you don't fit this box, if you don't fit my big vision, or if you don't fit where I'm going, see you later. Like, it's not bending over backwards to people please to you to fit other people's boxes. It's like, hey, are you coming along for the ride or not? And so when you were like super crystal clear, it's like, boom, that person appears. So I think this is awesome. So what happened next?
So then he was like, well, what made you make a list like that? Like, I think he was slightly concerned.
Like, let me tell you.
Yes, exactly. Well, here's a story all about how I became a crazy person. No, I mean, I became a non-crazy person. I went to a therapist. No. And so I told him, I was like, honestly, have you ever thought about doing that? And he was like, no. And I said, okay, so go home tonight after our date. Make a list. Don't think of any specific person that you currently know. Like, it can't be based off of somebody you know, or it's going to be skewed. Like, you just have to get quiet with yourself and really think about it. And so he comes back like 3 days later with this list. He was like, okay, I did it. And I checked every box on his list.
And then you're like, all right, let's do it. Let's tie the knot. No.
Yep, we basically did. 3 months later, we were living together.
That's awesome.
9 months later, we were engaged. And 9 months after that, we were married. And 9 months later, we had a baby.
Oh gosh. Yeah. There's some numbers there. There's some manifestation numbers there too. I love this.
Exactly. So we were happily married, right? No, wrong. Because even though we had checked all of our boxes with each other, life happens. Stuff happens. Like, just because you find happiness once doesn't mean that it's going to continue. It's a constant journey that you have to be on. And we ended up, actually, we lost our first baby shortly after we got engaged. A miscarriage at like 11 weeks. And that was one of the most painful things that I think I've ever been through. I mean, even to this day, when you hear of someone that's going through it or has gone through it or has lost a child, like, it's like a dagger to the heart, because you've been there, you know how saddening that experience is. And I would go to sleep crying and I would wake up crying, and it was supposed to be the happiest times of our lives. We were 6 weeks from getting married and we were grieving the loss of our child instead. And the support and the compassion that he showed for me and for our baby was just amazing. And it was that point right there where I knew, like, yes, I had made the right decision for the first time in a really long time. Like, no matter what life was going to throw at us, like, we were going to be able to get through it. And so far, I mean, 7 years later, here we are, still happy and in love and in life, and, you know, just taking all of the things one at a time. But that was the beginning of me really kind of losing myself for a second time. And so even though we had that solid relationship that we were building our life on, I still wasn't happy. I wasn't content where we were.
Well, it's the different chapters, right? So, and you can't work on, and this is where I think a lot of folks struggle, and you can probably relate to this, you know, with your clients or the women that you work with, but we have all of these things wrong. We want to fix all the things all at once, but you have to focus on the major pain point at the time. And so at the time, before you met your husband, your major pain point was the relationship, was the spouse. And so you've kind of healed that story of yourself. And then once you heal that version, or, you know, work on that self, you continue on this journey, and there's another detour, there's another roadblock, there's something else to work on. It's like peeling back the layers of the onion. You're never, you know, done or complete. And when you're done, experiencing contrast in life, I believe that is when you cross over, kind of thing. Or other people think different things, you know, or that's when you find true happiness, whatever, until additional contrast comes in. And so you experience that. Great. Now, not great, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah. You healed that version of you, right? You've worked on that version of you, and then you move on, and then there's another version of you, and it's all continuously finding yourself on a deeper level, like your true self, that inner self, not this ego self or superficial self that people see on the outside. It's that, how can I be who I am truly meant to be and be 100% confident in that? And so it was just your path, your journey. And I think everybody needs to know that and give themselves grace and time, that you can't work on everything all at once, because you're just going to create more chaos, more burnout, more overwhelm. It's start where you're at, work on that, focus there, and then move on to the next thing. And so I think that's what leads us into your teaching journey, right?
Yes. Yeah. Where was that advice when I was, 7 years ago?
Dude, I tell myself that all the time. Like I got into law of attraction like 15 years ago, but even like with the whole manifestation and law of attraction, like you still can like lose your way. Right. And so
yes.
I wish somebody would told me this stuff way sooner, but it just,
Absolutely.
it all works
Absolutely.
out as it's supposed to. But anyways,
Yes.
keep going.
Well, and it kind of sent me down this like path of like, well, if I could just check all the boxes again, like it sent me back into my old patterns where if I could just check all the boxes, happiness will come back.
Yep.
So let's have kids really quickly right after, so within 2 months, we were pregnant again. We were, expecting our baby. That brought up all new emotions because I was still supposed to be pregnant with Haven and we were still grieving and yet growing and excited for this new baby to enter our lives, but scared to death if it, what if something happens, all the things. Mm-hmm. And so I had her, she had some health complications. Our oldest did. It was quite the traumatic experience, but we knew we wanted more kids. And I was to the point where I was like, I am either going to never have kids again after this experience, or we need to have another one right away. So we jumped right into having a second child. They're 16 months apart. And it turned out that whole time I was really suffering with postpartum anxiety. And it was like the hidden something in the room that nobody could quite pinpoint what it was, but don't poke it because it would explode really quickly.
Yeah. So how did you, it's so funny you talk about, it's not funny. I got to quit saying that.
No,
it
is funny. Like it's ironic.
Yeah. But like I remember being pregnant with my first and everybody talked about postpartum depression. Yeah. I had never even heard of postpartum anxiety until about a year or two ago. And so walk me through what that journey was like for you. Like, what does postpartum anxiety look like? And how did you know like you had it?
Yes. So I was in such a fog, and looking back, I don't even remember things from those first like year and a half or 2 years of being a mom. Like those are supposed to be the days that you just like relish in and love and you soak up because you never get them back. And the only memories I have are the ones from pictures or videos that were taken during that time, because I was just not myself. Like I said, I was still grieving. I was overwhelmed. I was a teacher. I was giving everything I had to being a teacher. I was feeling guilty because I had this perfect life that it looked perfect from the outside and nobody really knew what was going on. And it turns out, I think I probably always had some anxiety. I've always had OCD. And so these things were just heightened by the postpartum hormones. And so my mom pointed it out. She was like, you're just really quick to like explode, like to take it down a notch, like you just get angry so quickly and you just seem so irritated all the time. And like loud noises, chaos, anything like that just really pushed me over the edge so quickly. I had like zero coping skills. And so at my 3-month postpartum appointment with my doctor, it was actually our daughter's appointment, but he always made sure to ask like how I was doing. I felt really lucky that we had a doctor that wasn't just there to see the baby. He's a family doctor. So he was always checking on me and seeing how he's doing. And I was like, I don't even know. I think I just finally like blurted it out like that I need help. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And he was like, everything you're telling me is textbook postpartum anxiety, actually. And I take this little tiny white pill now every night. And what is it? It's been 4 years now and I still take it. It's the lowest dose of the med you can get for anxiety, but it was just enough to like cut the edge and allow me to see a little more clearly and be a little more present. And that actually, starting that is what led me to working with you in the first place, because I knew that I wasn't needing to heal the things of the past. Like I had a pretty good handle on that. It was like, where do I want to go in life from here? This is a new starting point. What kind of a person do I want to be? What kind of a job do I want to have? If I'm not happy in my current life, then I need to take a deep dive into it. And that's exactly what led me to you.
Yeah. And I think that it's cool that you touch base on, the therapy part, the medication part, because I do find that there's a lot of, again, like stigmas on that. But without those steps, you wouldn't have had the clarity to even give yourself the space to look at what the next level of your life was. Right. And so
Yes.
it's just the journey, and there is zero shame in asking for help, even though I find that our culture really makes it like you can do all the things, just put more things on your plate. Oh, just create more time, do more things, add more to your to-do list. And it's like, this is just contributing to everybody's stress and anxiety and overwhelm.
Yes.
And it's like, when is enough enough, you know? And so it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to see a therapist. It's okay to take medications or supplements or anything to really help you go to that next level. And there's zero shame in it. And I love that you touch base on this, because I find that far too often a lot of us don't share that version of our story because we're scared of what other people think. You know, we're fearful of judgment, or if we can't control what others think. And so thank you for that. But walk us through what this next chapter and how really it has led you to where you are today. Because I mean, now you've been in business on your own for a few years now. You have, I mean, just the progress that you've made since I've known you, let alone the stuff that you've done before I met you. But walk me through that, and what it is that you really focus on with the women that you work with, and, you know, some steps that they can take to get started on their journeys.
Yes, absolutely. So when I came to the realization that I didn't really know what I wanted in life anymore. I had always had these big dreams of being successful, whatever that looked like. And I just didn't feel like that was where I currently was in life. And I'm telling you, like, if you know me, or if you see my life on social media and things like that, people look at me and they're like, this girl, she's got it together. And they've thought that my whole life. I've been able to put on this really good show to the outside world that everything's put together. I've got the manifested husband. We've built a house. We've had the kids. We've done all of the things. Everyone should be happy with what we have going on in life. And when I wasn't happy, that just contributed to my guilt and my anxiety. And I finally found to the point where I was pregnant with our third kid, and I was Googling, like, are there rehabs for exhausted moms? Like, celebrities get to go to rehab. I put that in quotation marks because we never really know if it's for exhaustion, but that's what they tell us.
I know what you mean.
You know, like, is there a place for normal people like me to go for that? And Google turned up zero things at the time, zero places for people who were feeling like me to get help. And so I've been listening to a friend of mine who was very open with her own personal development journey, talk about you and the coaching that you were doing. And I was just like, I'm going to give it a try. I'm willing to give anything a try at this point to make my life better. And I'm willing to put in the work to make it better. I'm not just going to sit here and complain and claim I'm a victim of life, because a lot of things in life could have let me be the victim and to feel sorry for myself. But it was time to, like, stand up against that and take charge and figure out what I had control of in my life and what I could do to make it better. And it all started with just really identifying what it is I wanted, listening to myself, not what other people thought I wanted or what other people classified success as, but actually getting quiet with myself and thinking, what does success look like for me? Does that look like I make $1 billion a year? Does that look like I'm the president of the United States? Because success looks different for everybody. Does it just mean that I'm breaking some hereditary cycle that my family's been carrying for generations? Like, what does that look like for me? What is going to make me feel success at the end of every day? And that's where I start with my clients too, is because that was the turning point for me, was being able to identify that about myself. I was able to wake up every day and put one foot in front of the other because I had an end goal. Now, I may never live my perfect life or become the actual best version of me, but the fact that I wake up every day with that intention is all that really matters.
Yeah, I think the intention part of it is huge. And I think we also have to let go of the idea of perfectionism, right? Because I think if we have this, I always encourage people, you want to have a big vision, you want to have a dream, you want to have something that you're striving for, but you don't want to let perfectionism hold you back, because I know there is so many that they won't even start because they're fearful of, if I don't do it perfect, then I'm not going to do it at all. Or if I don't do it this way, then I'm not going to do it at all. If I don't know the next 18 steps that I need to take, then I'm not going to do it at all,
Yes, exactly. I'm doing a training on exactly that tonight, actually, with my membership group, which is funny, but just like have this end goal. So even as simple as like, I want to lose 50 pounds. Super. You want to lose 50 pounds, but we want to make a SMART goal, but it's hard to make a SMART goal when your goal is that big. 50 pounds is a lot of weight to lose. No. So what if we decided that, okay, what are the steps I need to do to lose that 50 pounds? I need to step back and I need to work out daily. Okay, super. There's your new goal. You're going to start off by working out 2 times a week. Now, after you've got that mastered, then you're going to go to 3 times a week. And then once you have working out consistent, then maybe we're going to add meal planning and healthy eating to your life. And eventually then you're going to hit that 50-pound weight loss because you're showing up every day and you're putting in the work, but you're no longer paralyzed by the fact that I'm not losing a pound a week or 2 pounds a week or 5 pounds every other week or whatever it is that dividing 50 pounds out over 6 months would be, And so I think that having a big vision is necessary, but then scaling it way, way back and just focusing on the things that you can do right now in your current life that's going to make progress for you.
Yeah, it's almost like breaking it down into bite-sized habits, right?
Yes.
So rewiring your brain from I can't, or eating this way, or even like, and I don't remember if I talked to you about this or who it was, but even breaking habits down into just like minutes, right? So instead of saying like, I have to work out 60 minutes a day, or that's not worth it, like just start with 10. Like if you have 10 minutes to work out every single day, great, do that, give yourself a win, use that momentum to project you into the next week. And maybe you add another 5 minutes and you just incrementally upgrade what it is that you're working on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have this desire to see immediate results, and we have to start training our brains to be okay with the small wins, that it doesn't always have to be some massive win for ourselves in order to consider it success.
Yeah. So what would you say is like the number one thing that women come to you for, or what's like the number one thing that you help with? I know you touched base on your membership site, and so we can kind of transition into what that looks like what you've created for women based on your experience.
Yes. So when I was teaching, teachers are givers, and they oftentimes get lost in the roles that they hold. And that was something that I also struggled with when I first started this journey, a few years ago, or this portion of my journey. I didn't know who I was. I was a mom and I was a wife and I was a teacher, and that was it. Those aren't who you are, though. Those are the roles that you hold in life. And so a lot of women come to me when they're feeling lost or feeling stuck, and they can't even tell me who they are. And that's where envisioning like your best self, your best life plays that beginning part, because that allows them to kind of identify what it is that they truly, truly want. And teachers are no different. They take zero time for themselves. They give. And so I started working primarily with teachers and created a membership for them that allowed them to add self-care into their daily lives. Well, my version of self-care is a lot different version than most people's. So I have created a number of resources based on what I consider to be self-care. And it's not just adding to your routine a weekly bubble bath or, reading from your favorite book for 5 minutes every night. Those are awesome self-care things. But self-care has to start from inside. It's a completely internal thing. no two people are going to enjoy the exact same types of self-care. There's a billion options of what self-care actually is. And so I started working with these teachers on how to find, themselves and create a sustainable lifestyle that didn't make self-care seem like it was just another thing on the to-do list. And what I found was that I had all sorts of women that wanted to work with me, not just teachers. And so in the last few months here, I've actually expanded. So I don't actually work with teachers as teachers anymore. I work with women as women instead. And so I've completely opened up all of my programs to any women who are feeling stuck and wanting to make progress in their life.
I love that you touch on the self-care portion, because I do get kind of, to this day, I get kind of triggered by like, oh, just go get your nails done, and oh, just go take a bath. And I'm like, okay, great. But like, that's a great start. But what else? Like,
right.
What else are you doing? So
right.
Can you share some of the things that like you do, or that you see like that are most common, like aside from maybe just like reading at night or getting your nails done or getting a bath? Like, I don't know, like your top 10 maybe? Is that?
Yeah, sure. Okay. First, I want to touch on like the difference between self-care and self-indulgence. And a lot of people think like, oh, when I get home, I give myself self-care. I sit in front of the TV for 3 hours before I go to bed. That's not self-care. That's not benefiting you in any way, shape, or form. Do I think that you shouldn't watch your favorite TV show? No, that's not what I'm saying. But that's an indulgence. Whenever you are just so exhausted that you're just vegging out for hours at a time on your weekends or your nights, like that's not self-care. No. That's a self-indulgence.
So that would be like shopping sprees too, like yes. Where I find, like for me, I would say, oh, I deserve this because I had a bad day, and I would go blow like $300 on shit that I didn't really need.
Yes, exactly. Or going out and drinking with friends every weekend because that's your self-care. Like, no, that's self-indulgence. That's not benefiting you. The social aspect of it is, but the waking up feeling like crap the next day, only to repeat it the next night, that's not helpful to getting you to your best life. I mean, well, I guess if that's your best life, go for it. But that's not what I help women find as their best life.
Different program, maybe that's an AA program.
Exactly. And so for me, what I like to help women with is working on their mindset as a part of their self-care, getting rid of limiting beliefs, and working on mindfulness, being able to be present, have gratitude in your daily life, working on positive affirmations. And I know that a lot of times people refer to those as like Band-Aids, and they kind of are in a way. They're Band-Aids if that's all you're doing. If you're just waking up every day and being like, I am great, I am wonderful, I deserve the best, moving on with my day, like, yeah, that's a Band-Aid. But if you're using positive affirmations and pairing it with mindset tools and gratitude and making actual internal changes, that's when it becomes true self-care, because you are truly taking care of all aspects of yourself. Not just the pampering portions, not just the mental reading a book portions or playing a board game. Those are self-care, but in order for them to truly be life-changing, it has to be like an inward to an outward cycle, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do find and the other thing like about affirmations, just to touch on this, is I always encourage people to make them feel empowering and uplifting, because I find that sometimes we'll create affirmations just because that's what somebody told us to do, and they don't really resonate. And so it's the feeling that you want to go after, not the actual words themselves, but the feeling on the inside. And just like you said, like it starts with you within, not these external things. And so while these are all great tools individually, you're creating that momentum and that actual change in life when you can pool them together as part of your self-care plan, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly what I work with women on, is creating a sustainable lifestyle of this, and not just, oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed today, I'm going to get my journal out. Like actually creating solid routines, building solid habits, identifying what you have control over and don't have control over, the different types of self-care, physical, mental, social, spiritual, all the things, kind of taking all of the pieces of that 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and slowly putting it together. It's not a race to get this puzzle put together. This is the one and only time that you'll ever hear me say that we are not racing to get the puzzle put together.
Coming from the competitive person. No, I'm just teasing.
Exactly.
No, I love this. And it's just all different components, right? Like,
yes,
each part of it, I like, my brain is very, I don't know, like I'm very visual. I like analogies. And so like cars always work really great for me. Because you need gas, you need oil, you need brake fluids, you need blinkers, you need seats, you need all the moving parts to make the trip from point A to point B, right? Yeah. And so that's what I feel like we're doing. You can't just have one piece without the other. So you're working on the whole puzzle, just like you said. So I love this. What do you have coming up? Like, I know, I just know this from being kind of an insider that you have, your membership. I know you're doing a mastermind, but tell me a little bit more about how you work with women right now specifically.
Yes. So I have been focusing mainly on working with women. I have a self-care course that is just really like a DIY. You don't want the navigation system inside this car you're building. You're going to go it alone. You're going to find your own way, but you need a little bit of of a guidance, but not the turn by turn,
step by step,
directions. So I have a course that I offer, and then I have the membership, which is a little more hands-on. I'm present in there with monthly training videos and things like that, but also has some self-paced aspects to it with video trainings and experts that come in and talk about all things. Like this month is our mind-body connection. And so I brought in our good friend Jordan to talk about like holistic nutrition and how what we put in our body affects our mind and things like that. So we just really dive into, all of the really important aspects of life in there. Each month has a different topic, and we go from there. And then the newest thing that I've added that a lot of the members are taking part in is a mastermind for designing your best life. So this is where you get one-on-one coaching with me. You get group coaching with just the mastermind people, where we just really dive into doing like a life assessment, which area of life is going to move the needle the furthest for you, and where we should focus your time and energy on. And then I'm there to help support for a full 6 months on moving the needle in each portion of their life that we get to throughout our journey.
I love this. Okay, so 2 things before we start to wrap this up. One, where can people find you? That's one thing. And then 2, what do you want to leave listeners with today?
Absolutely. So you can find me. I have a website, www.marissarehder.com/guide. That's a free guide for living your best life that you can download, and kind of gives you an intro into what the rest of my programs are like. It's just a really good place to start if you're just like, man, I am stuck. I'm just not quite sure where to go next. This guide is what will get you started. Also on Instagram at Marissa.Rehder. Love connecting with people on Instagram. Hit me up in the DMs because I love just building relationships with people.
Everybody needs to watch Marissa's reels, because not only are they informative, but they are hilarious.
Oh my gosh, you crack me up. And stick around for the stories, because I'm a farm wife and you never know what you're going to get in there.
All the baby cows right now. I love it.
Yes, my husband actually, he is having a C-section done on one as we speak right now to have the baby born. So, which is unusual. So once again, just
oh my goodness,
crazy life all the time here at the Rehder household.
Oh, I love it. I love how you're just like, you're like, this is me, this is my life, and this is perfect. And
Yes.
it's like you're giving permission to everybody else just to be who they are. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. And that's honestly what I want to leave people with, is that when you get to a place where you are comfortable with where you're at, it doesn't matter what other people think. I used to replay conversations for days, months, years, replay situations that I was in, like, how could I have done this better or done it differently? Or, I always assumed people were talking about me or thinking about me and the negative things that I was doing or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that when you are comfortable and you have developed your self-worth and you start living your dream life, it's not going to be perfect. And there are still going to be those haters of the world, but their opinions no longer matter. And you don't dwell on them. You don't focus on them anymore, which is the most amazing feeling. And that's what I want to help women find, is that feeling of just being your true, authentic self and not giving a damn what anybody else says about it. Because if you're showing up every day to be your best self, their opinion doesn't matter.
It is so freeing. It's like a whole new level of emotional freedom, just freedom in general. It is.
Yes. It's like a whole weight is lifted when you get to that point. And so, yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, I feel like I could talk your face off. I just have like a million different questions, but I know we're up on time. So I want to say thank you for sharing your entire story, really, from, I mean, we've talked from basketball to college to one marriage to two marriage to babies to business. I feel like we covered a whole lot, and I find it very helpful, very relatable. And I love your energy and the way that you can simplify, like you do have that teacher mentality, right? That teacher aspect about you, which is, it's a great thing because you're able to break it down for folks to really easily absorb and implement into their life, right? It's not just these high level concepts that you see out there on the internet, like, oh, just do these 2 steps and you'll be successful. And you're like, no, we got to break it down. Even like, this is what you really need to do. And so I love that you're doing that for women, and you're making it easy and sustainable and long lasting change, most importantly.
Absolutely. That's my biggest pet peeve about calling myself a life coach. And I know that you have reservations with this.
Oh, I do.
Because I see other people, other life coaches on like Instagram and things like that. And they're talking about exactly why you are the way you are and the neural pathways and why your brain does this and that. No one cares. No, people want to care how to make change, how to make change easy, and then how to make it last. That's what they want to know. Plain language.
Yep. How does this apply to me and how can I make it work? The high level stuff is for those of us to break down into baby steps for the others. You know what I mean? So those are conversations. It's a different realm, right? Like you would never expect somebody off the street to go to a teacher in service conference and understand what the teachers were talking amongst themselves, right? No, the teachers talk about what they need to talk about, or the CEOs talk about what they need to talk about, and then they relay it to the team, or they relay it to their clients. They break it down so that it is easy to absorb and easy to implement. And that is where folks like me and you come in, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I totally feel you on those pet peeves. That is definitely something that, well, I've shared my fair, I've shared enough about that. But anyway, thank you. I loved this conversation. And for those listening, go follow Marissa on Instagram. I'm serious. You will not be disappointed. I love her reels. I love her live videos. She has so many great tips and tricks, tons of free content. Just you'll absolutely fall in love. And I will put all of the links in the show notes for folks so that you can just scroll down and click so you can get that free guide and kind of see how you can start to be a part of Marissa's community. So Marissa, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you. I agree. I could talk your face off all day.